Hi, everybody. Welcome to our meeting. I'm Carol Hebert, and we're going to do our Conradina Chapter Native Plant Society monthly meeting. And of course, this is February, beautiful month. We've had some cool weather, but we need more rain, but we had some rain today. But thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Um, we're going to do this and might be continuing to do this online for a while, so we'll definitely keep you posted. But we do want to welcome you to the Conradina chapter of the Native Plant Society's monthly meeting. And on behalf of all the Conradina officers and board members, we hope that everybody is staying happy, healthy, and safe. Masks on, please. Okay, it's great to not have a mask on when we're doing this. We're going to continue doing it, as I said, online, but we have a great website. Please check it often, conradina.fnpschapters.org. And that'll give you information about what's coming up, what our next presenter is, and also sources for native plants. So Florida Native Plant Society promotes the preservation, conservation, and restoration of the native plants and native plant communities of Florida. As always, I love to introduce the members and board members that aren't here, that we won't hear them giggling and laughing as they see us. So I see that there's a couple coming on and seeing with some nice friendly chat in the box about being called out with their name. But it's, of course, myself, I'm Carol Hebert. Joe Sarmiento is our vice president. Jane Higgins handles our treasury. Catherine Mary is our treasurer. And on our board is Suzanne Valencia, Martha Stewart, our Martha Stewart. Love to always say that. Sharon Dolan, Bo Platt, Jim Baldwin, Karen Moser, Dave Seiss, Carl Weinbarger, Linda Ger- Linda Gerasi. And Linda, you're funny. I see your notes. Linda Gerasi, Leonard McCrae, Stuart Weiner, Sarah Morrison, and Cammie Donaldson. And thank you all for what you guys do. And tonight we have a great speaker, Jennifer Mitchell, and she is with the St. Johns River Water Management. But please keep in mind for next month, which is March 8th. I think on our newsletter down in the corner, it still said February, but it is March 8th. The next speaker is Marjorie Shropshire, and ironically, she is the fantastic editor of the Palmetto newsletter, which is for the state's Florida Native Plant Society. So she will be our speaker, and she's going to talk about how to create a nature garden. So that'll be perfect. Um, Another thing too, and you're probably tuned into it, is we did change the name of our YouTube site. Now it is Conradina Chapter FNPS, and you're tuned into it now. But just in case you're at somebody else's house or you go to the library or somewhere and get a computer going and you're gonna, what's the name of that thing? And you can just go to Conradina Chapter FNPS, and that's our YouTube site, and it does show, it will show this meeting and all the things we've done in the past. So they're always, you know, online and to watch over again, and with any other people you can pull into the picture of watching native plants. And I hope everybody is getting ready for a fantastic Valentine's Day this weekend. We are going to celebrate Valentine's Day as a weed day. I mean, a weeding day down at Ballard Park. It's one of our favorite parks. We did get a grant to put native plants in it. Ballard Park is located, it's just off of US 1 on the east side, just south of Sarno Road. and you go down there right to the lagoon. They've got a tennis court, a playground, and boat, um, you know, the ramps that you can put your boat in. So our garden is right as you come in, so you'd see it. And we do need some help getting some weeds out of there. So if you would help us out, it's this Sunday morning, and it's from 8:30 to 11:30. And if you just come on down, have gloves, a hat, maybe sunscreen, any kind of tools, digging, might be a kneeling pad you'd want. That would be great. We could use a little help and make it look beautiful. So it's this coming Sunday on Valentine's Day. We also have one other thing we're starting up is we're going to go ahead and put together our 12th annual Native Plant Garden Tour, which is always called the Landscaping with Florida Natives. This will be our 12th year we've done this. Last year was online, so it was a virtual one. The first one we had virtual. The next one coming is in October also. It's always in October. So we need a committee, and we also would love it if you would want to highlight your yard. So please let us know. You can go to our newsletter or the website, and you can contact, just if you go to our website and it goes to contact us, you'll have my email address, and it'll also have Carl Weinbarger's, and it's his email and his phone number. So either way, if you're a homeowner and you want us to come check it out and see if you'd be involved with the garden tour, that'd be great. We'd love some new ones, and figure out what we're going to do as our committee grows. So keep that in mind as well. All right, I think I have done enough babbling, so I would love to introduce the guest speaker tonight, and that is Jennifer Mitchell. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today, Carol.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. It's really great. I'm can't wait because you know a lot about native plants. So the show is going to be just fantastic. I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick introduction, and then we'll just get rolling.
All
Okay.
right, sounds great.
Okay. So Jennifer is a public communications coordinator with the St. Johns River Water Management District, and she's passionate about Florida's incredible water resources and hopes to spark your interest in what you can do to help protect Florida waterways. After earning her PhD in Florida ecology from Auburn University, she completed a postdoc at the University of Florida in soil and water science. Excuse me. Because she realizes that greater results will come from more community participation, she now works to spread the message of how individuals can help their impact in our waterways. So we really appreciate that, and some great enthusiasm. Thanks, Jennifer.
Absolutely, thank you.
So I'll
So I
switch
do.
over to your show.
All right. So today I'm going to talk to y'all, give you a little bit of an overview about all of the things that we do here at the district, as well as really highlight a few of our land management practices and some of the programs that we have going on right now, to help you understand ways you can also get involved. So I do hope that I can get a little bit of involvement. I have some polls throughout my presentation, and the link for those is going to come up in just a second. But this little bluebird house and bluebirds were some that were in my backyard, and it has we got the bluebird house last year, and it's been really a great opportunity to watch our backyard and how it's able to be utilized for habitat, and provide for these kind of creatures. So I know that you all are advocates in terms of utilizing native plants, but it's always good to see an example of creatures that live here that need our help. So I will just say that it was very exciting that Fred and Ethel, our two bluebirds, made a house, and they had four sets of fledglings that came from our nest.
And
So I do want to.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jennifer, but make sure you tell them where you live, because we
Oh,
don't get them all the way down here. I mean, I'm a pretty good sized, avid birder, but
oh,
we don't really see them too much in Melbourne. So where do you
oh,
live?
thank you. Yeah, so I'm up in Jacksonville. So in just a second, I'll tell you about the district and how big we are. But our office is, and the office that I work in is up in Jacksonville. So I do want to get a little bit of polling in our presentation today. So if you have an extra browser or a smartphone that you can log in to this website called ttpoll.com and type in the session ID of SJWRM 72, that will allow me to ask some questions. They're super simple questions, and everything is anonymous, of course. But it does just let me know if I can kind of tailor where I'm going with the presentation to focus on some areas rather than others. So right now it looks like not anybody has jumped on yet, but if you,
Yeah,
I know it's also.
run that by us again and tell us how to log on. You said
So
phone or
So
your
you can use
computer?
your phone or your if you have a browser open, you can open a new browser and type in ttpoll.com. It will redirect you to a website that's a longer name, but then you can put in that session ID. You don't need to put in your name and all of that information. You just need to include that session ID.
All right, so give us a minute. I'm doing it.
Absolutely. And so the website to log on to. Oh, I see a couple of folks have joined on, so that's wonderful. So I'll leave this up for just a couple more minutes. And I will say that I've really found that it's helpful to have polls throughout presentations, both to let me know how to help guide the presentations, as I said. I do want to go off of something that Carol was talking about in terms of the yard tours. One of the things that we have recently started doing that you may be really good advocates to relay this information. If you live in HOAs and you have community association managers, we have recently started continuing education opportunities for those community association managers, looking at irrigation, stormwater, and conservation easements. And so if you have any questions about those or how to get your CAM signed up, please let me know, because I would love to continue getting the word out about those trainings. All right, it looks like we have a good number of folks joining on. So I am going to go to our first poll. And that is, how familiar are you with the St. Johns River Water Management District? And so on your keyboard, this should, or your computer screen or your smartphone, this should pop up on there, and then you have your 4 options, and you just click those options, the one that is best suited. So do you request permits from us for work? Do you get outside on our district property? Hopefully, if nothing else that your group gets from today, if you didn't already know about our district lands, hopefully this will give you great ideas of places to go for field trips in the future. Do you get water news or follow us on social media? Maybe you hear about us in the news. Maybe you've just seen your name on, or our name on, the property tax bill, or you might not be sure who at all the St. Johns River Water Management District is.
Who? I like that one.
Yes, that is one that is very frequent occurrences, especially depending on where I am and what kind of group I'm talking to. It's always funny to hear that. So great. I hope that today will give you a good understanding about what we do and why we're doing what we're doing. So we are one of the 5 water management districts in the state of Florida, and the state of Florida is rather progressive in terms of water management. We were created back in the 70s, and our overall mission is to make sure that we have enough water for the people and natural systems of our district. So with our growing population, our important natural systems, we just need to make sure there's enough for everybody to go around. And so in order to do that, we have 4 core missions that everything we do falls under. So our water supply, water quality, flood protection, and natural systems. And I'm going to talk most of the time about our natural systems because they really help us accomplish all of these other things all at once. But I am going to mention a little bit about some of the other aspects. So before I move on too far, I know you guys down there in Brevard County are an anomaly to this for the rest of our district, but where does the water that comes into your house come from? So everybody may not have the same answer for this question. So where does that water in your house come from? Is it coming from a lake, a river, aquifer, or I don't know? And so one of the reasons that this is so important to know where your water is coming from is because it helps us to understand why water conservation might be important. If we don't know where our water is coming from and how that water is interconnected, then we might not think that conservation is important. So the city of Melbourne gets its water from a lake. So those of you who are in Melbourne, you are correct with that lake answer. But then the rest of Brevard County pretty much gets its, and the rest of our district is getting its water from the Floridan aquifer. So whether you have a well at your home or you're on municipal water, it's going to be coming from the Floridan aquifer. And that is important because, as I said, you may think about being in Florida and getting a lot of rain. We got up here in Jacksonville, we got about 3 inches of rain on Sunday night. It was crazy rainfall. But it's this really uneven rainfall that we get across the state that can really influence the water levels in our aquifer. But our aquifers also are the lifeblood of our rivers, of our springs, and do provide us with an abundance of fresh, clean water. So just a little bit about what the aquifer is and why it's so important that we think about conservation. Even though we do have a tremendous amount of rainfall that we get, we have a large abundance of freshwater lakes, miles and miles of rivers, of wetlands. So we are a very watery state, but we have to continue maintaining that water so that we continue the ecosystems that we have. So across the entire state, there are areas that there are these confining layers, so the water isn't able to move through as quickly. And so that creates these superficial aquifers. And so if you've heard of like a shallow well, that's going to be what you might see in terms of those shallow wells as they're going down into a superficial aquifer. You'll get a lot more of our lakes in those areas that have superficial, that have a confining layer. And then across all of Florida, up into South Carolina, across southern Georgia, and over into Alabama a little bit, is the Floridan aquifer system. And it's made up of predominantly limestone. And that water is in constant motion as it moves through the aquifer system. It gets into that aquifer system in areas of recharge. So in the Floridan aquifer, the area between the Ocala National Forest over down towards Tampa is a really important recharge system, recharge area. And so then that water is moving and actually comes up in our springs. So that's why it is so important that we're thinking about that connection between the water that we're utilizing and our natural systems. There also is an important connection in water conservation because there's also a layer of salt water underneath the entire Floridan aquifer system that if we utilize too much fresh water or there isn't enough that's getting recharged, then we can have saltwater intrusion into our municipal wells or into our residential wells. And that can render a well unable to be utilized for drinking water or you need to have a new type of cleaning process that would be more expensive. So if we leave more fresh water down in the aquifer, then we can help to prevent some of that saltwater intrusion. And then we also can't forget, yes.
I have one person who was asking a question because they live on the barrier island, which
Okay.
we have a number of people that do. And
Yes.
they were wondering if they have water access from the aquifer.
So they would have, that is an interesting question. They might have their own little, the Floridan aquifer does extend out into the ocean some. I will have to get back about if that is the Floridan aquifer. But that is a good question, because a lot of the barrier islands, depending on where they are and how long ago they were created, they may have enough fresh water so that they've gotten kind of filled up their aquifer system. But I'll have to get back to you if it is the Floridan aquifer system.
That'd be interesting because we know there's, some treatment plants beachside. It's just alongside A1A. And so that's a great question, Rhonda. If she was asking about that, if it was aquifer out there, or I don't know, if it's I don't see big pipes coming in. I don't know if they go under the lagoon or.
They would go under the lagoon.
Yeah. So that'd be interesting. So yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about the barrier islands. Thank you for bringing up that question.
Well, we probably have the most barrier islands out of all of Florida. So
that's true. That's true. Yes, and please do interrupt me as there are questions, because it's easier to answer them whenever whatever we have is up. And then the other piece that I did want to also add is that as we develop and change the landscape and the plants and if things are impervious or pervious surfaces, we cause a lot more runoff to occur. So that's one other way that we influence this Floridan water cycle. So it's really important that we think about where our water is coming from and how we can help to maintain some of these areas as natural systems. And so the district owns over 700,000 acres of property, and we work on some of those properties to maintain the natural systems that are there. Some of them we are working to restore them to what they would have been previously, working on that habitat restoration, and some are still in pine plantations. And so some of those properties generate some of the revenue for our district properties, but all of them are left in a natural state because, again, we'll see in just a second that most of our properties are going to occur along the Indian River Lagoon, or not the Indian River Lagoon, along the St. Johns River, or one of our lakes in our district. And so they're going to be in those low-lying areas, and so they're going to help with improving water quality because they're wetlands. They're going to help with flood protection because they're keeping people from building in those low-lying areas. And they're going to help with water quality because they're wetlands, and wetlands act as the kidneys to our ecosystems. And then we also have some properties up in Alachua and Marion County and in Lake County that are really important for recharge, so helping with that water supply piece of the puzzle. And so these are some of the places that I'm going to highlight, some of the land management plans that we utilize, and prescribed fire is going to be one of the overarching themes that you'll hear about in this little section. And if you are interested in learning more about prescribed fire, or if you get really excited after seeing some of these pictures of fire, this Thursday at 11:30, we will have a webinar that talks about the district and prescribed fire and some of the benefits that allows for in our property working. So the first property that I'm going to talk to you about is Jillington Durban Preserve. That's way up here in my backyard. I think it might be one of my favorite properties just because it is so close to us. But it is a very urban piece of property that we have. You can see that when we're doing prescribed burns, we have neighbors that are right over that fire line. And it's through a lot of education and a lot of communication with those neighbors that they understand why we're conducting fires and ways that they are able to make sure that it doesn't cause any negative impacts to them. So at this property, we had, when we purchased it, there were lots of sand pines that had established there. And sand pines will cluster and grow really dense. They really like fires, and so they burn very hot as well. And so they'll have an entire stand replacing fire. These uplands would have been longleaf pine ecosystem, longleaf pine habitat. And so this is just another reminder that all pines are not created equally. And the habitat that is available from the establishment of longleaf ecosystems really is beneficial for the creatures that rely on them. And so there are gopher tortoise at this site. And so once we acquired this property, cutting out those sand pines was one of the first jobs that the land managers had. And they had to go in multiple times because the sand pines do continue to try and come back, even with the fire and the longleaf coming back. But there is a small seed bank of sand pines. And so the fire return interval at this property is a very frequent one. It's every 3 to 5 years. And so this, you can see the difference on the right side of the slide, on that side of the fire break. That's getting a return interval of every 2 to 3 years, where the other side of that fire break is going to be about every 5 years. So it's to the longer end. And so you get a lot better longleaf wiregrass community when you are getting that burn frequency much more close together. And after multiple burns at this property, we found this little gem of Bartram's ixia. So it's an endemic species that's found just in northeast Florida. And it is not very surprising that this plant does not have an abundance across all of Florida, because although it has these big showy flowers, they are only open for a couple of hours in the mornings when they are in bloom, and then they close and fade away fairly quickly. So they are not very copious reproducers, but we have them on a couple of our properties up here. The next property I wanted to talk to you about is getting a little bit closer to you, down in Volusia County. It is Hart Island Conservation Area. When we acquired it, it had been in pine plantations. And so we acquired it, and it was very densely planted. And so we went in and did some thinning, introduced some fire into the area. And with the introduction of that fire, we did see some pine lilies starting to respond in this.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah, so the fire, it really just shows that once you get that fire back in the ecosystem, that it's really able to allow that seed bank to flourish and to come back. And so we can see that both the pine lilies are doing well, but also you get that nice wiregrass community with a variety of grasses coming up in the understory. And then the last property that I wanted to just kind of highlight is Hal Scott. It is getting much closer to you, and it is a very beautiful property, if I do say so. But the thing that I feel like, are most proud of at Hal Scott is something that I'll tell you about in just a second. You may notice that the trees on this property are much further apart. Prior to our acquisition of this, it was in cattle pasture. And so we have the right kind of trees. We have longleaf pine, and we do have a nice open understory. the thing that we're going in and working on doing now is increasing that density of longleaf pine. So Hal Scott Regional Preserve is right here, and it's really close to a lot of other natural areas. And so it fits really nicely in that, thinking about that corridor of the area down there. So again, really open, lots of longleaf pine. So we have been doing some longleaf pine planting, trying to increase the density of that. And that is for these little guys, which these are the endangered red-cockaded woodpeckers. And so it is one of the few sites that in the U.S. that we're monitoring their populations. You may notice there are these little white things because this is a man-made cavity. So these are the only bird species that actually burrow into, if you will, or they make their homes in living longleaf pine. And so they have to have a large enough longleaf pine and enough of them for that to support their families and their density. And they're going to just be one bird per cavity. So as you notice, there were lots of space in between all of the trees. So we do a lot of prescribed burning in this site. But there are times that we will go in and utilize more mechanical cutting of the understory. And also once those palmettos accumulate too much of a level, if we haven't been able to burn as frequently, getting those to decrease in abundance is also a benefit of this mechanical treatment. And so we can see that mechanical is also good when we get into these areas that are just much more overgrown, and that throwing fire in this would be a little bit of an intimidating factor. And again, I shouldn't say it that flippantly. The prescribed burns, there are lots of considerations. They're very planned out, but it's much easier to go into this type of conditions to do a prescribed burn than the previous conditions. So you can see we're able to leave those overstory trees and really focus on keeping the trees we want and getting rid of the ones we don't want. So water supply, we are, it's really important that we understand how much water we're using and how much water the natural systems needs. And so for our water supply, this is that water that we utilize in our homes and our landscapes. Sorry about that. And so since making sure that we have enough water for us and our natural systems is one of the roles of the district, we do this through our regional water supply plans, which take into account how much water is available, where is it going to be coming from, what is the population growth, and what are those projected water demands? How are we going to split up the water needs? And so these are done with 20-year horizons, and they're reassessed every 5 years. You guys would be in the Central Springs East Coast region, and we are getting ready to present that to the board within the next couple of months. So if you're interested in that, keep checking back with me. So how do we,
Jennifer, if you would go ahead and forward that, the times of the meetings and so forth to us, and we'll put them in our newsletters.
Absolutely.
In case people, are interested or can attend one, especially affecting us, down here. So that would be great, just to keep us up to date in that manner.
Absolutely.
Because we could just put it in the newsletter or on, our website.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
When we talk about public supply and about our water use, this is ultimately why water conservation is so important. So this is the water use for just our district, the fresh water use. So in our district for 2019 alone, 986 million gallons a day were utilized. The public supply is what's coming from our utilities, and private wells are those that have wells in your backyard. And so this is the water that we're using in our homes and businesses. This graph shows population. So that's that black line. And again, thinking about that water that's being used and provided by our utilities and our private wells. This is a really good story of making sure that we understand that water conservation is occurring in our district. So back here in 96, the per capita water use was higher than it is now. So we are seeing water conservation on that per person level. However, it is important that we continue to see water conservation, because if we think about the current cost of water and our current water supply of the Floridan aquifer, it's about $1 to $1.50 per 1,000 gallons. If we're thinking about reclaimed, so that treated wastewater, which is a great source of irrigation water or water that can be used for other sources, it's again about $1.50 per 1,000 gallons. But as we start going to other sources, so deeper wells or surface water, there's more in the water that has to get removed. And if we have to go to desalination, then our bills would be 6 to 8.5 times what they are now. And so this is a really good reminder about why water conservation is important, because we want to make sure that there will be enough water for us and our natural systems, and that the cost of water doesn't get prohibitive from everyone having access. And so conservation is the best way to have more water into the future. So how much water do you think that you as an individual use in a day? So not your whole house, but just the one individual. Oh, why is polling closed? Let me see if I can open this up. Uh-oh.
Did something happen? It's still showing on our side.
No, it's thinking now. That's never good.
Oh, I see, on the tolling.
Yeah.
Turning.
Well, I'll see if I can go on and get
closed.
Oh no.
All right, guys, throw it in the chat box. Let's get some answers. Let's see what I can do here. I think I can show that on the bottom.
Awesome. So
one person. Who's next? Because I'm not really sure if I use more than 30 gallons. All right, I got another one.
Between 30 and 60. All right. So are those, so so we have a really great, and I'll send you the link for this. I'm going to try and just end the polling because I'm wondering if that might be part of my holdup on my.
Ooh, 80. Could that be?
So the average in our district is about 83 to 84 gallons of water per person per day. So it sounds like y'all might be using a little bit less than the average person. But the thing that's so important is to know that so much. I'm going to just my computer apparently just is having too much work.
That it just, I guess, is halfway surprising to use that much.
So let me get that back up. So it is so interesting that depending on where you are, that you can utilize different amounts of water. But the big takeaway is that half of our water use, if you are irrigating, is getting utilized in our yards. And so thinking about using native plants, because they are going to have more appropriately adapted roots, and their just whole ecology is going to be better for our natural systems and for the amount of rain that we get. So did that get my presentation back up? Yes, there we go. So several studies have looked at how much water is utilized for outdoor irrigation. So about half is getting utilized outside. So it's really important that we're thinking about ways that we can save water outside.
Yeah, because when we talk about, native plants, they need it in the beginning because they're a little used to, they're just in a small, like a pot, that we take it out of, and then they're in the ground. And so just a little bit at first, but it ends up that a lot of native plants are drought tolerant.
Right, especially if you put them in the right place. If you look at the soil considerations and what their requirements are, they're gonna be drought tolerant. And you're right, you do have to water them in and make sure they get established. But once they are established, then they're gonna be able to take pretty much anything, but maybe those extreme droughts when it's really dry and really hot, they may need a little supplement of water.
We'll have to do a presentation on those water barrels that come off your roof, and just so much water can be kept that way.
Yes, those are a great way to, I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit and talking about outdoor irrigation. So depending on if you have irrigation systems like with the timer, ways that you can conserve water are things that you all are probably already doing, of decreasing that amount of high volume irrigation that you're using. So things where you can put in micro irrigation to help with that establishment, but then you're able to just turn it off, are going to be very beneficial for water conservation. And then making sure you have one of these, of a functioning rainfall shutoff device, that will also be really helpful. So if you do have an irrigation system, you want to make sure that you are only running it between 10 and 4. So, after 4 in the afternoon, so in the evenings, or before 10 in the morning. So you're not wanting to do it in the middle of the day when it's the hottest. And we are still in only one day a week restrictions. And we are running a campaign of did you set it and forget it? Trying to encourage folks to check their irrigation timers and to just reduce how much they are watering their landscapes. If you are interested in some of our databases about water-wise landscaping, I know not all of them are native, so that is one consideration, but this is a really good resource in terms of those soil and light conditions that plants have and that are going to be water-wise. And then maybe it'll give you some ideas of new plants to have at your next native plant sale. I did want to mention just real briefly about our water quality mission and about the extensive data that we do collect in terms of water quality. So we have a large monitoring system across the entire district looking at surface water, so our rivers, our lakes, as well as our springs, and then groundwater as well, because we also have a big impact in water quality. So whether it's things that we're doing in our landscape, so how we're caring for our lawns, if we have lawns, And things like fertilizer and that stormwater runoff, we can really see an increase in sediments and nutrients and heavy metals in that stormwater. And then septic systems also will have an increased amount of nutrients. And so when those nutrients get into our lakes and rivers, we can see those harmful algal blooms. In our freshwater systems, we'll see those the blue-green algal blooms. In the more brackish water or salt water, you might have a brown algal bloom. So those are two different kinds of algal blooms that there might be. And so the district is doing a lot of things to try and reduce the amount of nutrients, especially that are making it out into the Indian River Lagoon and into the St. Johns River down in Brevard. So there are several cost share. So those are with our local governments and utilities, helping residents to connect from septic to sewer. So there are several of those that have been going on in Brevard County and a few more that have just recently been approved. Some cost share to help. So again, with the local government to help improve the stormwater infrastructure, so more nutrients are being removed from that stormwater before it's discharged out into its surface water, and then also helping the utilities with increasing the amount of reclaimed water that is utilized for irrigation. We have a really great informational webinar about our flood protection. And down in your area, there are a lot of flood control areas. A lot of these orange areas are going to be district properties, so we're able to hold the water on the landscape rather than pumping it out to either the St. Johns River or out into the Indian River Lagoon. And so that's a very beneficial use of having those district properties down in that area. And then one final thing we are a permitting agency. So there are two different permits that we're responsible for. The environmental resource permit. So those are going to be wetland delineations, ensuring stormwater infrastructure for new development is designed appropriately. Any type of assessment for endangered species, those kind of things prior to development. And so this is one of those places that our new continuing education with community association managers of really trying to educate them about the responsibilities that the HOA has and help them to understand some of the water resource issues that can occur if they're managed improperly. And then we also are responsible for consumptive use permits. So those water users that are going to use a large amount of water. So our utilities, golf courses, agriculture, making sure they're using the most appropriate water and that they aren't impacting existing water users. And so I am happy to take any questions if you have them. And I apologize about my coughing. I got too excited, I guess, talking too much.
Well, we appreciate that. There's one, I know Rhonda had just put down on hers about to remember about reclaimed water for irrigation, that it does have a lot of nutrients in it. What's your comments on that, Miss Jennifer?
That is very true. One thing that we are working to do down in Brevard County, especially in areas that are utilizing reclaimed water and close to the Indian River Lagoon, is working with those water reclamation facilities to improve the water quality of that reclaimed water. So taking out more nutrients so that we aren't getting this problem of additional nutrients making its way through the grass and straight out into our water bodies. But yes, if you have reclaimed water, you can at least skip fertilizing sometimes, and make sure if you are fertilizing that you get a soil test for phosphorus. I know Brevard has a fertilizer ordinance, so you also want to make sure you're checking that as well.
Is the Vieira wetlands an area that the St. Johns River Water Management has influence in? That's a site that does have water, those big water barrels, huge, and
Yeah,
they goes into wetland areas, and it's a bird site also.
I am sure it was permitted through us, but I am not sure. It is not a district property,
Okay,
um, but I am not sure its exact role.
it's a great
But yeah,
bird.
there are some really fabulous places that are utilizing that wastewater stream of treated wastewater, like the Orlando wetlands. If
Yes,
you've been
yes.
over there, that is they're utilizing again that kidney function of wetlands so that the water that comes out of those wetlands that in that case goes out into the St. Johns River is actually a lot of times cleaner in terms of the amount of nutrients and those kind of things than what's coming downstream from within the river banks. I see a question about any plans for Palm Bay septic. I'm going to have to use my cheat sheet of the projects that were funded this time around. So we had several septic to sewer projects that got funded in for 2021, and it does not look like any of those were in Palm Bay. But one of the biggest things, so our governing board did just change the way that projects would get evaluated, and having a large proportion of the folks that would get hooked up with those systems with that cost share is going to be one of the requirements before a local government is able to get those cost share dollars. So if you know folks around you that want to get hooked up, talk to your local government officials, tell them about the cost share, make sure they know, and make sure that they know that there are a lot of individuals that would like to get hooked up.
Interesting, interesting. They would do it. Is it like not street by street? Like how would that? It have to be an area like a
It would be in
unit?
areas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And most frequently, there's an emphasis in getting ones that are in closest proximity to our water bodies, so to the Indian River Lagoon. But there's also an effort to just get those older systems, making sure that they're getting hooked up to sewer rather than continuing to have that water quality impact.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another question for you.
Oh, you would ask that. Um, it is
Is that the Lake Washington?
Lake Washington. All I could think of was Lake George, and I was like, no, that's the one that's up closer to me. It is Lake
I know
Washington.
we're
I was
talking
getting George
south.
Washington. Yes,
Yeah,
it's Lake Washington.
interesting.
Yes, we do work in partnership with the county's Save Our Indian River Lagoon program.
Excellent, excellent, because that was huge. Hugely voted on and supported, and we see a lot of things with the county and with Marine Resources Council and different groups really working because, as you know, we are the biggest county that is up against the lagoon, and
Right.
so yeah, that is. And we have a great comment from Linda, how she likes to use her rain barrels.
Yay. And I believe that there has also been research that shows that utilizing rain barrels rather than city water, or if you have water that might have any salt in it, that you're going to have better response from your plants because the rain is what they are more accustomed to getting. So
Very good. Very good. Um, okay, let's see. I think I got one more for you.
So I feel like here in Florida, we have a really fluid, for lack of a better word, definition of if something is a lake or a river, because most of our lakes even are along the St. Johns River. So Lake Washington is along the St. Johns River. And they are areas where the water spreads out and slows down, but then the river continues on the other side. So it's a flowing lake. So there are lots of those, and frequently even the St. Johns River is called the River of Lakes for that reason, because all along the way it does spread out, slow down, and then it finds its way back into a channel.
Now, if I can be arrogant, can Palm Bay claim the main source of the St. Johns River
Well,
out in Lake Helen
technically,
Blazes?
technically, it is down in Indian River County.
Darn it.
In that those are the wetlands that it's very shallow, and very spread out. So the kind of the Blue Cypress Lake is that, like, for our intents of the water management district, that's where the St. Johns River starts. But a lot of times the maps don't show it until further up into Brevard.
Yes,
So
I like
it all
that.
depends on who you want to get in an argument about it with it, I guess. But you
Lake
can claim
Helen,
it, sure.
Lake Helen Blazes, yeah.
Yes.
Well, fantastic. I'm not seeing any more questions, so I think we've just getting some compliments now too. That Jennifer, you really covered it really nice. We appreciate what you've done for us and how you've presented it. It's always questions being answered, and I like it the way we can put our questions in of what people have. We miss our actual meetings where people are right there.
Yes.
So we really, really appreciate what you've done for us, and gave us some great new information too.
Absolutely. And if any, I will send you the links for those, the upcoming webinars. But if anyone is interested in finding out more about what we're doing in terms of the community association managers and those trainings, those are open to the public. So if you're just interested in stormwater, you're welcome to come to those as well. But they're continuing education credit for the CAMs.
Yes, please do. That would be great. We have some, people that are very interested and very active, and want to know and might want to attend as well. So that would be great. That would be great. So, well, I just want to thank you again, Jennifer. I think it was a big show of people and responses, and if I could just remind everybody too that our next meeting, again, it's on Monday, March 8th at 6:00. And it's also our next speaker is Marjorie Schofire too. And so we'll be continuing to talk about that. So thank you again so much, Jennifer. We really appreciate you coming here with us today. And thanks to everybody for attending. And we just want you to remember to plant native. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.